9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Hello, everybody. We're here. We're on the air. It took us forever. But thank you all so much for your patience. And yeah, I should get this over. Anyway, everybody, again, thanks so much for hanging in there. My name's Rob. I'm the co-host of Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. And today we're going to be looking at a neo-Western or a revisionist Western called Badland. But before we get into it, let me bring on my co-host with the most, Corporal Jimmy Burnside with the Union Forces, the Grand Army of the Republic.
I'm just
Jim,
trying to make an honest go of this farm. This is no reaction. I was after the war and all. Thank you. I spent hours.
You're very welcome.
Coming up with that there. I'm just going to adjust my thing so I'm a little lower there. Okay.
You're working hard on that one?
Yeah.
Right. Well, everybody, before we jump into the show, we got a few folks. People were working and appreciate it. Okay, I am going to, I don't know, Jim, I'm going to just dump on the synopsis and then
sure.
we'll get started. Sound good?
Sounds good. Sounds great.
All right.
I reckon I can live with...
What's your name?
Breacher.
Badland is a 2019 Christian-themed revisionist Western written and directed by Justin Lee. Kevin Makeley stars as Matthias Breacher, a Pinkerton detective charged with bringing former Confederate Army war criminals to justice, or executing their sentence by any means necessary, if the convict refuses to come peacefully. We quickly learn that Breacher has to execute the sentence himself quite a bit, given they've all been sentenced to death by hanging, and...
None of these men will let themselves be hanged, sir.
Breacher is set up as a classic Western loner lawman who is tiring of the trail and his grim gig, and is dreaming of settling down into a home of his own where he can lay his head on a pillow instead of a log. In a nice moment with the two-scene character Harlan, played by Wyss, we hear Breacher say he needs more money before he can retire, but this is where we start to suspect he's got deeper reasons for sticking with the status quo. After this moment with the Herald, Breacher proceeds to the cook's farm or punctuation error and home to the next runaway from justice on the list. He arrives to find another classic Western trope, a sole woman homesteader by the name of Sarah Cook, played by Mira Sorvino, bravely facing down armed men trying to bully her into the selling of the farm to their boss, Mr. Quaid. After the showdown kind of resolves, Breacher lies to Sarah, saying he and her father, Reginald, are old friends, and we learn old Reggie is not long for this earth. After Breacher and Reginald, played by the typically crusty Bruce Dern, have a soldierly heart-to-heart, Breacher decides to let Reginald pass as God sees fit, instead of hanging him from a tree. Of course, duty demands that Breacher wait until Reggie dies, and Sarah is demurely delighted that Breacher is staying to visit for a few days. Because of his choice to wait for justice, Breacher will need to face Quaid and worse before we find out if he ever does find that pillow to lay his head upon.
Do you refuse to come quietly?
All right, then.
That trailer pretty much shows the whole thing. Quick nanoseconds of every scene. No, but yeah, it's good.
You know what? I was surprised at how much I actually enjoyed this. I mean, it certainly has. I would give folks a qualified recommend. I'm sure we'll get into that. But before we get into the meat of the movie, let's say hi to a few folks who managed to join us. Got Matt, and because, see, Matt, I was thinking of you. I wasn't tardy. I was thinking of you, Matt, and how you wanted to see the intro. Anyway, Matt, good to see you. And it looks like we got Richard. Good to see you too. I'm sure Katie's somewhere there with you. Hello. And
anybody else chime
Jim. Give me a hot take, Jimmy.
This is my hot take. I wrote it
right now, and we've got a few people watching as we speak. It's fun. Oh,
I wrote it down. It's a movie that features an Irish goodbye at a 2-person funeral, which I thought was pretty. That's just when you just leave and don't say anything. And I thought that was a pretty cool move to pull off. Just see ya. No, not even see ya.
Yeah.
Just get on the horse and leave.
Not even see ya.
Irish goodbye. I wonder if she'll notice.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was one of the many moves.
And then when she does, he just stares.
Yeah. It's the meaningful look between the two. But there's I think this movie was a lot about the cool moves, and a little bit. There was about 30 seconds where they showed him lighting a cigar in a saloon about 2/3 of the way through, and I thought, boy, that's quite a long shot for him lighting a cigar. But that's part of the fun of a Western, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It was, and when I was watching it, and it really was like I felt it kind of stuck to those tropes pretty well. He was very much a buddy who played Matthias. Mr. Blakely,
Kevin Makeley.
Kevin Makeley. Thank you very much. And I'd throw up the tickers, but apparently, I can't believe I didn't change these either. It was not written by Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas.
Showbiz.
But you can actually see in the video's descriptions, I did set it up, but Kevin Makeley, Mira Sorvino, Bruce Dern and Wyss Studi, they were kind of, I thought it was, it's Wyss Studi or Studi?
Wyss Studi.
Studi.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for the correction, Jim. I mean, he was, like, he had literally 2 scenes. And a few of the others, The General, who was Grammy nominated, so you can tell they knew the market they were going after. I believe that was Mr.
Trace Adkins.
Trace Adkins. Thank you very much. He had his one scene, but
spoiler zone. I'm just reminding them of the spoiler zone. So
thank you very much. Yes, I will. Let me throw that up. Spoilers abound.
There you go.
But Wyss Studi, like he did a great job. It actually was one of the nice, and I really meant it when I try to keep editorializing to a minimum in the overview and the brief, like the first act synopsis, but I really did think it was a nice little moment. And it's still a revisionist Western. And I think some of the problems, like when I thought of if I had a one sentence review, I'd say, not bad for a Western, did not stick the landing. But part of that is they're trying to do, and even the director was quoted as saying, I wanted kind of a new, like a revisionist, let's say an up-to-date Western, but the Western of when he was a kid with his parents, which is all pre-1975, like when the Westerns, one 1/3 of every movie at its peak, 1/3 of every movie, and we're talking for decades in Hollywood, was a Western. And same with television. The whole place was rotten with it. You know, that frontier myth and a little bit, and you even see it in this, the Lost Cause myth, post-Civil War Lost Cause myth going on. And so because he wanted to do those with a fair bit of, like, first half I thought was great as far as Christian symbolism went. It was pretty solid. It was pretty subtle and woven into the story. Second half of the movie was a little more, wow, the God light's on him in the chapel as he's about to face down the boss bad guy. You know, but all those things, but it's still the Wes Studi moment. Like, I mean, there's almost like these three little scenes where it's sort of like, well, we do have to acknowledge racism and, you know, destroying both the racism of the at the base of this American Civil War, which created this Lost Cause myth, which helped create the Western, and the almost wiping out to an individual the American indigenous people. And I thought it was, but all that said, so they had this little moment at the beginning where and I really do. I thought of him as a herald character, Wes Studi's Harlan character, and he goes, "It's like, listen, you can retire. Where am I going? I have the horse and I've got the trail. That's all I got here. You know, everything else has been taken. But it was a nice, like, little human moment there, where even as he is kind of setting up the whole challenge for our hero, it's the, hey, you know, you want to change, you want to live, you got a change coming up. You know,
I mean, I'd almost like to see this. A lot of times these days, you get a different angle on a story, whereas you know, nowadays it doesn't necessarily have to be the white dude who's the main character, right? So it would almost be kind of more interesting to have it from the Harlan's point of view, the Wes Studi character's point of view, or even the Mira Sorvino's point of view. And boy, I mean, she there's no question on whether or not she can carry a scene anymore. I mean, she was I think the most sort of into it actor in the cast there. The two main women did really good. Did a really good job of sort of being present and not just posing, but saying line, like delivering, like being present. I think, you know, where a lot of the rest of it was a lot of cowboy poses and things like that.
Talking about Amanda Wyss, who is also Beth. She was Beth in Better Off Dead. $2.
Wow.
She was the girl, the high school girlfriend that breaks up with John Cusack's character at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
And she was also in Friday the 13th. Like you see in her credit list, there's a lot of, like, I mean, there's a part of me that kind of felt bad for her. It's like, wow, there's a lot of uncredited, because they were using her footage there in multiple remakes, and then it's all like, oh, they couldn't even throw her a screen credit. You know, probably some way to screw out her wages, but you know,
special thanks to, or what have you.
Nothing like that. You know, what did you think though of? And I'm trying to think, like, what I wanted to ask you, amongst a list of other questions, was why'd you, like, you're the one who brought this movie up. Why'd you bring it up?
You know, I was. This one was.
Why, Jim? Why?
For the uninitiated, or for the people that aren't present for our postmortems, we were sort of exactly. Unless
I like the way you throw that out there.
Unless you pay the subscriber fee of a low $10 a month. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe we can move it to like a Zoom meeting, or we could have the after party that we
alone, you know, get to Get a inside seat. No.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sponsor this can of beer and sorry, Jim. Go on.
no,
Sorry.
no. It just we hadn't really. I mean, we'd done some genre movies, sci-fi and that sort of thing. Hadn't really done a Western. I don't know what it is. I was reading I was wanting to watch something sort of an old-timey thing. I was reading about, I came across some reference to John Sayles, I guess. It was Chris Cooper was on the Mark Maron podcast, and he was talking about Lone Star, and I thought, boy, that'd be kind of neat to see a Western. I mean, this is no Lone Star, but, at the same time, I know that there's various ones out there, and a few recently that I've quite enjoyed. 3:10 to Yuma, Hostiles, which we talked about watching. I guess for the people that don't know, when Rob and I choose a movie, we like it to be something that neither of us had seen, and that we're both sort of open to. So I'd seen Hostiles. Rob had suggested it, the Adam Beach, Kristen Bale movie, which has one of my favorite scenes in the last 10 years in it. But so anyway, I just wanted to, we sort of came up with this one.
I brought up The Searchers before as an option, and so okay, all right, so that's
where the thinking was.
It was.
So, and we just we're literally looking over the list, and I haven't seen that. It's in my list. I wouldn't mind seeing. And the promise of it, especially these days, where you have the Southern Cross flag being banned. What took you so long? But sorry, getting political. The juicy sort of plot line of somebody hunting down Confederacy. And I don't think they had this in the 19th century. War criminals.
I took a deep dive, actually.
Oh, did you?
Jim.
Okay.
Yeah. But continue.
No,
I took quite a deep dive.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, I don't think they really. I think it sounded kind of juicy. I thought it sounded kind of promising, especially I like to see baddies get it, and this seemed like it would deliver. So.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like I did. As part of my research, just to kind of, what am I expecting? And you know what, for all those here who watch this later, the Western, not my thing. Christian films, although it's not billed as that, and I would say rightly so for the first half. The second half, it's like, well, okay, we're getting a little obvious. Maybe you should be, a little more. But mind you, I'm not that familiar with its marketing. Maybe it really was up front in its marketing. But I found where was it go? But anyway, I was like, what do I and don't I know about Westerns? What are my expectations here? And of late, I had, just because of what's going on in the United States, and I'm trying to relate that to our own Canadian experience, I've been researching, just hobby researching, Wikipedia, the odd, the library is a wonderful resource about the American Civil War and the fallout from that, which kind of brings up the Lost Cause myth. And then the whole frontier myth is a defining characteristic of the American character. Mm-hmm. And this is a lot of where Westerns come from, and which was kind of trigger. Also you look at how, and let me see if I can find it. Like even the reference to the Pinkertons, it's like, of course, now growing up in a radical trade union home, it's like they're scumbag strikebreakers, So this guy, but they were also like, and this is not, I'm not giving up. I'm not. But they were nice guys. Like they really were a private, but mostly did government work, police force, when the United States was a lot more. Post American Civil War, it was like an ad hoc agglomeration of where do we need to apply order, and Pinkerton had his posse, so some of these it was more truth. What I was rolling my eyes about, Jim, I was like, oh wait, there really is there's something here. and but where was I? Oh, yeah, Civil War criminal
Yes.
like this
Yep.
was one of the first wars where it's not the very first where soldiers were tried and executed at times for war crimes. One goes back to the 18th century, 17 something or other. Even earlier, there was one in the 15th century, but I'm not sure if you could really call it a war crime. But yeah, in the 18th century there was one, and then here, but there was some folks who were convicted and executed of spying, convicted and executed. It was military tribunals that tried and convicted all of Lincoln's assassins, which they kind of saw as part of the war, part of the, but in this, so was there Pinkertons roaming the land, hunting down war criminals that were tried in absentia? No. But there's that little bit of, there was one, and one poor schmuck who, one of those things where it's like, atrocities happen, but if the prison warden isn't being given any resources, and that was Wirtz and the Andersonville, which was,
prison
like
camp.
Literally a third of the 45,000 Union prisoners who were in there died. Only 30,000 made it out alive, and mostly to starvation and disease. You could, and it looks like, you could make a decent argument, not 100%, but you could probably make a decent argument that the guy was scapegoated because it was like, somebody should go to jail for this.
One guy.
Hang.
Yeah.
One guy. Hey, you look good.
Yeah, exactly.
March the guilty bastard out, So I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Yeah. I don't know if I, in looking at it, I guess I didn't realize.
We got Jim.
Whoa. Sorry, we're both reading. Oh, yeah.
Richard jumped in. He knows.
Yeah.
There we go. So there's another person. It wasn't just Wirtz.
Yeah.
Wirtz was the other guy. And then there was
see?
the idea of a Pinkertons roaming the land. And here is where I'd say, and this is what, as far as thematic, or let's say, sort of the subtext, because there's you got the Wyss Studi character and that one brief acknowledgement of, indigenous people of, let's say, within the borders of the United States.
Yeah.
The other, and it was at least that one felt like it made sense for the story. He was a herald. He's that liminal character as Buddy goes on his adventure and change and then comes out on the other side. So kind of buying it. But the other one was the Todd guy. What the heck is
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd. Thank you very much. And it was, and I even cut a piece of it out in the, where he has an aide, because he's a senator, and his aide, and that's the aide saying, well, they were, and this goes into where I would really argue it's like they want to kind of, they're taking advantage, the writer-director kind of was leaning into the lost cause mythology, or at least a part of it, talking about if these men felt like they were fighting on the side of honor for the Confederate States, they won't, and it's like,
it won't
meanwhile,
go lightly or whatever.
And almost the Todd character, the Senator Burke, he's like, well, what about our suffering, and it's almost like he does represent justice, I think, but there's a, it was kind of a heavy-handed one. And a part of me thought, was somebody saying, we are never going to get this financed by any normal source of finance. Never get it on something if we don't acknowledge slavery somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise I'm like, what? you did not need those guys. You did not need him communicating and
he
getting
never
permission and that. Like,
yeah, and he never talked to them directly, and it was very much a sort of, they were off on the side, and I didn't actually think those scenes were very
2 scenes.
Yeah,
That's
and I thought they were kind of very cardboardy. I thought the
shoehorned in.
Yeah, not so well written, and you know, if you're
Whereas Wes Studi, like his scenes were, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim. Sorry,
No, I just I think in areas this could have had the script. It felt a bit like it was a draft of a script that it could have used a little more polishing, and it was that sort of real dedication to sort of 19th century lingo and terms and stuff. I think the Matthias character says to Sarah Cook, the Mira Sorvino character, he says something about her having fortitude and perseverance, and I thought, boy, you should have called the movie Fortitude and Perseverance and see if you could get an audience with that. But
there's a few of those old timey clunkers.
Oh yeah. Jeff, I wrote this one down. Jeff Fahey, the lawnmower man, as the sort of third act antagonist, says, "I possess a special skill set," which is pretty much a rewriting of Liam Neeson's "I possess a special set of skills." Not even all that well plagiarized, but it's just like, what? Can you get away with that? But it's there's some moments where it's I think I wrote it down. Let me check my notes. Where it's and again, this goes more to the frontier myth. It's a hard land that requires hard people to tame it. Yes,
which is, really just, I'm wondering if they're like stealing pieces out of 50s and 60s. Like, he makes a reference to dime novels, which another actual appropriate, like when there's, and I'm like, were dime novels even around? Were they making, and it's like, this is sometime those things started in the 1850s, 1860s, and that they were started in the West, not perfectly, but close enough. Like, I'm like, oh, that is an appropriate reference.
Well, he said it's time. Let's give these folks a dime novel showdown.
An old-fashioned dime novel showdown.
Yeah. And well, you have the Penny Dreadfuls out of England, and I guess there's
the dime novel
in the West
here. Yeah,
but
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just and coincidentally, or maybe not, the Jeff Fahey character gets the bulk of the sort of colorful lines. I think at one point Tony Todd said, "It's badge against badge," and as the African American senator back out east. He said, "This is unfamiliar country. It's badge against badge." But
yeah. Unfamiliar territory, I think he said.
Yeah.
Like,
did I? Yeah. Okay.
Metaphor, I think. Yeah, because he was kind of, but you may be right as well. We can pull up the movie if we need to.
I think Richard's got another comment there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He did actually, Richard. That's a great point. But I think there's.
I'm a mite hungry.
He did briefly. It was really hard to hear. I actually had to pause it, and is there I'm not sure if he referred to like brand Western Union, but is there a telegraph in the place? I think that was how they did it. Plus, he had to gird himself, and that's a perfect segue. Thanks for bringing that up, Richard. That was a perfect segue, because I really do think like some of the things, I mean, it's got a pretty solid beginning, although the weirdest, like, I mean, I had a hard time going, well, when does the second act start? Oh, I guess it's his choice. He chooses, which, again, like some of the characterizations, like he is an active protagonist. At no time is he reacts to things, but it all starts from a choice. He makes a choice. which causes things to happen, which force him to react, and then he makes another choice. So I thought his characterization was good. I think there could have been more done, like either tragically or, or on the, if they wanted to stick with their themes of repentance, redemption, I think that they could have done something, and that's part of why they didn't stick the landing. But it was super duper Catholic Christian, and I don't mean that pejoratively at all. But it was and so it kind of, and you saw that, and so going back to Richard's comment, It was quite entertaining that it's like, wow, that comes back quick. Even though they're sitting back east and they're kind of pissing around. Like, did he write no sense of urgency? Like, urgent, stop. They're just down the street. Stop.
Well, and then just it's so awkward the way that he gets the message, and he's in that, obviously it's a studio somewhere with like a 3 walls and the open fourth wall, and they're just sort of in this and he's just ripping up or he's folding up a telegram or whatever, and like he's had it for hours. Yeah, it was kind of a weird inclusion there. But you were talking about Godlight earlier. There was just before the sexy bathtub scene, there's a bit of Godlight on the steaming bath. So I don't know what that says about.
No, that's a great moment. I think that was another, also a bit of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Needed it ain't the years, lady, it's the miles, But of course, she's a nice Christian woman.
Yeah.
But there is an idea of and if you look at the beginning, and he is obviously he's a dark man in dark clothes, not in relishing his job, thinking he's on the right side of justice, but only just on the right side of justice.
Yeah.
And so there seems to be a theme, and you can kind of see it as soon as they get to that. Wes Studi's character, the Harlan character, is there. I'll just hey, you don't change, we're going to end up shooting at each other because I can't retire. I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, have choices.
That was interesting, I thought.
Yeah, I did. The story, there's a super, super solid story in there. But then when he gets to the cooks, and I am Jesus, buddy, punctuation, man.
Several people pointed it out online as well. So I've noticed that in others.
So what the hell?
Yeah.
But anyway, are you talking about the cook's house or the cooks as
the
a
cooks?
Family?
What?
Multiple cooks or one cook with a building? Cook's thing. But then when they get there and he goes in there and you notice, because the way I looked at it from let's say a biblical perspective or a capital C, especially gospel Christian worldview.
Yeah.
There's definitely Catholic. You could see the first man, the general, is the unrepentant sinner. And so he dies as he lived by that sword, Definitely an unrepentant old bastard. I've been driven off my land and screw this. No, you're not taking me alive, copper.
Yeah.
You move to Bruce Dern's character, Reginald, old Reggie, and he is the repentant man. And you see him, he is in white, like right out of some middle-aged church movie. So he's in his clean white. The window is open, so you got nice, soft, but clean white, cool light on him. He is the repentant man getting ready to meet his maker. And again, very Catholic. Whereas our hero is still in the shadow. And when they're dealing together, he never gets in the light. He's in the shadow. He's having a hard time. He's a man burdened with guilt, and I'm not sure if he's worthy of guilt.
Yeah.
It is only after halfway through, and you have that little false victory moment where she's washing him, which I thought was, she's washing him, he's in light, and that idea of cleansing.
Yeah.
That and her saying, listen, you just have to you can let this violence go. You can be a better man by leaving the violence, and it is an opportunity. And this is why, I mean, you're not sticking the landing, because that points to a certain either tragic ending, because he doesn't and he dies the violent man he was, or a more revealing, like an even tougher choice later. And they muff that, and they make it too obvious, and you know, and they make the Pinkertons on the side of God, which I gotta push back there.
That's a little bit, yeah.
So but like, did you like later on, going back to Richard's comment, so he's in that church, that's him, like, and there's moments where it's like, oh, he must have been praying. Was he praying? Oh, for Christ's sakes, he was praying. You know?
Yeah.
And he gets it's more on the nose. After that midpoint, you've got the town, knife's edge.
Nice edge. Yeah.
You know, it's the madam and bar runner
Alex.
Alex, thank you. She is talking about how it's their purgatory. Everyone has got there, and they're stuck in purgatory. And then in the mission, he's having a moment, like all spiritual warriors must. They must have time with God, and this is where God is shining upon him.
Yeah.
You know, and usually it probably even more than a month, Richard. Perhaps 40 days and 40 nights. You know, your classic amount of time. But yeah, you know what? By then, technology was already moving along. I even think of that badge versus badge, and their response to him. Any means necessary. Do what you need to do. That's almost there's man's justice, where any maniac, because you got the unrepentant man, the repentant man, and then the Jeff Fahey character, which I thought he did a pretty good job. It's like, you're a devil. You're irredeemable. Like, the man is committed to he's a demon, you know.
Well, he's his crew, I guess, is probably the most openly misogynist of the three. I guess if you wanted, I was thinking that, because the Trace Adkins, the Bruce Dern character, and then the Jeff Fahey, that makes three. I was thinking it was sort of a two-mission movie, but you're right, because the prologue actually made comedy rule of three, you know, but I mean, that does make sense. But he was, and he, you know, he had glee in his his handling of the town, and those trombone notes threw me off a sec there. The good. No, it's awesome. I love it. I play the trombone. So,
go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that. So that I mean, I didn't really make all the religious connections you're making. I mean, there's always some. Especially in some American cinema anyway, and it all sort of the one, you know, the one that can deliver us, the one that can save us, the one savior. I mean, that's sort of burned into a lot of it, you know. With all the trials, a lot of
heroes journey stuff and that.
It's very, very Christ-like, anyway. But
and there's where I say this is actually pretty good. Like, and I'm not talking about the snake oil sales people who make those super gross, over the top, aimed for evangelicals, where everything has to be pristine and just downright stupid.
Can I just add? I'll just add. For some reason, I'm getting all these Pure Flix ads on whenever I turn on YouTube, and so it's like, he's a biker who loves Jesus, and it's just like and so they try to. It's this actual show. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. You can look it up, but it's one of their. And I guess the station actually funds these, so there may be Pure Flix Productions, and there's it's towing a real weird line there. Like it's sort of humorous, but sort of trying to be tough as well. And you have to watch. It's its own thing, really. You have to watch this.
Terrible movies and terrible theology, you know. And I say this as an atheist. Really awful theology and just awful movies. Whereas this, I'd say, yeah, this is a pretty good Catholic movie. And I can go even further. You look at Justin Lee's filmography. It's a couple other religious things. Mira Sorvino has been in a couple of his movies, and she's been in a few, you know, which call Christian themed films, you know. But again, like I can say I'm pretty impressed. Its theology is reasonably solid, but at the same time, the writer-director did want to make a Western. So instead of a thematically probably better choice, where in the final showdown he's got to beat him spiritually, not, all right, I'm just going to shoot the shit out of everyone, kill them all. You know, that was I thought that was part of not sticking the landing. And now here's an interesting part. I don't know if you, again, back to my weird deep dive. One of the things that isn't talked about as much in film, like, I mean, sex trade workers almost always seen as terribly exploited by, well, men, whereas you know, there was a lot of madams in the West who were pillars of the community. You know, the brothel / bar owner was somebody who helped maintain law and order. Like, I mean, they financed a lot of, you know, the usual things that a pillar of the community would do. And so I did think when she left, when he gave her the badge, which can also be, you know, an allusion to, who's stuck with Jesus, you know, at the very end? It was the women that did. And for, but, you know, even that Alex, that Mary Magdalene kind of character, saying, man, it's your town now, you know, you'll do what's right. Because she said before, it's not the job, it's the man. So
that was fine. I just don't like that guy.
Yeah, the guy's an asshole. You know, but hey, liquor and, you know, so I kind of like those parts and a lot more, you know, not showing the, I will now lift you up. This is what I mean. Yes, he saved the people in this town. Absolutely. Like every other Western, you know, there was a final showdown. But I didn't see him as a savior character, actually. I really saw him as a character that needed to be saved. You know, like he was under a burden and he needed to be relieved of that burden. You know,
when he gave Alice that he took
Alice, calling her Alex.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
When he took the badge off of Jeff, the sort of what was his name, Huxley,
and handed out the
Wainwright. So he takes the badge off.
Huxley Wainwright,
and then he goes, you know, farewell, sort of goes to shake her hand and puts the badge in, and it's got this huge pin on the underside. I thought, totally gonna, you know,
it's like, ow, I'm bleeding.
Yeah, exactly. You got me.
You know what though? Now, if I was really diving deep on the Christian imagery, I'd be like, schemata.
my palm is bleeding.
Stigmata.
Yeah.
I'm like, here, let's
so
get the topology out.
I knew what you're talking about, but so there's a few of those things, but
and there was some humor in that it's like, apparently the Pinkertons were so powerful they could give away whole towns. Public office for you, not for you.
Yes, yeah. I was sort of wondering, and I maybe you check this out on your deep dive, but I was trying to get a sense, and I know I've read them other places, but a good definition of a Western, and what I sort of found in a real quick glance about was not super satisfying to me. Like a lot of times I try to define film noir, for instance, and you generally know a lot of the ingredients, like with a Western, but it almost seems a lot like a lot of surface stuff, horses and guns and that kind of thing. Even on, let me just read you out the plot keywords on IMDb for this movie: shoulder holster, gunslinger, cowboy, revolver, and revisionist western. So, I sort of wonder, like I'm trying to myself capture the essence of what a western is, and I think it's a little more than just landscape, horses, sheriffs, and that kind of thing. But
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just couldn't really. Nothing really satisfied how I was trying to think of that myself. Anyway.
Well, there's certainly that's a great question, Jim. There's certainly the iconography, horses. Like, I mean, and I did after I kind of, as I started to get prepared, I sort of, it's the wide brim hats, the frontier, dirty, dusty, minimal dialogue seems to, but these are more like characteristics, but what seems to be is the basic nuts and bolts. Sorry, Jim, I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
The basic nuts and bolts of the Western as a story definitely is very much in a historic time, but isn't a period piece. Just as World War II, like there are war movies as a genre.
Yeah.
But World War II movie, that's a period piece. It's here. We're going to look at, but the Western, very much the Western frontier, usually post Civil War to when modernity hits. Usually some liminal character himself, like a loner or someone who's gone out to the frontier, becomes part of the land, even though he's a civilizing force on the land. There's almost always a quest. There's always almost always someone to save. So that's how you get these tropes where, and there's almost always some conflict between the rural homesteader. Sometimes the rancher's a hero, but usually isn't. There's a that idea of the purity of the home, the small family holding out on the range, and requiring some loner who is both savage but also civilized, who helps them tame the land, protect them, save somebody from it, that kind of thing. And these characters are very rarely characters who can stay in civilization. So there's a very much and it's part of that tension, even though, and this is part of the reason the Western as a genre is pretty much dead, is because you scrape away at the history and it's like, oh, this is all BS. And disturbing, like it's underpinned with fantasies of manifest destiny, racist myths, and so it's why the Western is now, every now and then there's a revival, and you could almost say this is an attempt at a revival. If I just do these things about Indigenous and about racism, I can have all those things and I can still make a Western, but you know what, you got here, it's he's on a quest to tame. There's criminals out there that are gonna wreck this pristine land, but it's also a land that is savage and needs to be tamed. So you've got some of the basics of the storytelling of it. Myself, and then of course there's subgenres. Wikipedia's got a great article, and I'm almost finished a long documentary by this historian, YouTube thing, but an actual like a trained historian who, his argument is that historians created the Western through the idea of the frontier being a defining American characteristic, and all the historiography based on that. That's what made America different, what made it exceptional to, the 60s and the 70s with Red Power movement, American Indian movement, Wounded Knee, all these things where it's like, oh, maybe it's not. And then, the last couple of bullets in the head of the Western were, things like It's Dustin Hoffman plays
Little Big Man.
Little Big Man.
Yeah.
Not the outlaw Josie Wales, because that's a very, that's more of a lost cause narrative. But that and Blazing Saddles, which so totally, it's almost like here, this is all BS, and all we can really do is make fun of it. And so what you now see in either you got neo-westerns like Star Wars, where they basically, okay, we got to take this narrative and move it to outer space.
Yeah. Still sand.
Yes, but still sand, still a farm boy, still out in the hard, tough, tame-worthy, like Star Wars. Even if you start looking at it as a Western, it's like, oh wow, Lucas even brought the racism, because the bantha, not the bantha, the sand people, it's like the local savages,
exactly.
So
those Jawas never get their due. Free the Jawas. That's a great point. I saw that earlier. I
think it's a bit of actually, that's a great question, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean, my first reaction would be it's more story and metaphor, because usually, like, if it was an action flick trope, I'd say like they kind of go to the town to get treatment.
Yeah.
Whereas
the doctor.
The doctor would come, and then he might leave early, to, okay, you've got me bandaged up, I've got to. Whereas this, I think, was the, you know what, I have a spiritual mission. And almost like the Wyss Studi had to protect him. So I'm going to lean towards more metaphor and more for story reasons than a trope. Like, if he was it would be after the shootout, he'd get on his horse. If it was more a trope, he'd get on the horse and the horse would take him home, because the horse knows, oh, you must have wanted to be here. Whereas here, it's a little more, well, the horse does end up taking him home, actually.
One of my favorite...
the place where the horse has been to like twice.
One of my favorite moments in the movie was when they were being ambushed by the oh yeah, right, because there was another gang, like there's the Quaid character, so there was actually
guys,
okay, so there's 4, and they are sort of going to ambush them on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning or something, just a mellow kind of time, and he
made me think of A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Whoa, I haven't seen that. But he looks at his own horse.
Another one that said, oh, this is all BS.
He looks at his horse and he goes, shh. And
the horse is quiet.
Shh. And, I can't imagine the horse being able to do that, puts a hoof in front of his, anyway.
The horse woke him up.
Yeah.
And then when he went, he probably looked at him and going, I know, I'm the one who woke you up. I know what we're doing here. This ain't my first showdown.
Yeah. Actually, at the end, when he's riding his horse and he's all wounded, I was just thinking, what does that remind me of? That was actually obviously better shot, and it's Viggo Mortensen playing Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, when he's sort of kind of but not quite mortally wounded, and he's just fallen, I guess, in the
Everybody,
Two Towers.
Richard, remind me, we've got to come back to this because I've got another thought on that. But sorry, Jim.
But just in the Two Towers, and the horse revives him. He finds him in a creek, licks his face, and then Viggo kind of climbs the horse, and he's just sort of like clinging to the top of the horse, and the horse gradually brings him to rescue. I can't remember where now, but it sort of reminded me of that a little bit.
It?
It wouldn't have been to Rohan, would it?
Where did he? No,
that's when they got attacked, and he went over the edge with one of those.
Oh, the warg wolves.
Yes, yeah,
yeah. Was it? I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to watch that again. Like
all
some
12 hours.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
No, I have to watch a good movie. Let's go back to Richard's comment quickly. I'm wondering it's not even it's right. Like, I mean, he does not fix himself up, and and this is where it going back to something Jim you said about maybe this story wasn't quite ready to shoot. There is, because there's some really solid imagery, some really solid setup and payoff, but I'm wondering if at the end it's very much no, it fits the story. He's got to get back to home. Whereas the other parts, it's almost like he had a death wish. That's the way I would kind of read that. Like, I don't care. I'll be fine. And just, so I mean, that's a tough one. Like, Richard, great question. Cause it's, we'd have to ask the filmmaker.
Yeah.
I'll tweet at the guy. I'll tweet the guy. So
he actually says to one of the deputies, he said, every morning I wake up and I'm ready to meet Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
And you're not, and
are you?
Yeah.
So real showdown moment. Did you see any other things in this that reminded you of other movies? Like, I mean, I was really surprised at how many moments where it was like, and what I wanted to ask you, Jim, is if you saw them, how much of this is now just that these moments are vernacular, like just part of the vernacular, the vocabulary of film now, like they got done once so well that you only think of it, but that they're just part of the regular thing. I'm still here. I just got to
No worries. I'm just sort of looking at my notes. Sorry. In terms of in terms of the whole Western thing, the thing that sort of that I found amazing about the movie, so it was a real, and I don't mean this to be as derisive as it sounds, but it was a real paint by numbers kind of thing where they have, check, we need a scene with that, check, we need a scene with that. So when he has a final showdown with the Jeff Fahey Huxley character, they're actually going to do a draw, which I thought, are they really going to do that? Because it's been a while since I've seen one of those in a modern movie. Usually it sort of degenerates into some sort of run and shoot kind of thing. But as they're sort of facing off, they actually did like the close-up of the eyes of each character. And then they had a hawk cry out like they tend to do. Yeah. There's like 3 sound effects. There was that sort of like
3 little music cues.
That percussion you might hear when you watched Beretta, like that. And I'm surprised there wasn't any bongos. And there was no hawk. There was a hawk screaming. No muted trumpet. But there was
one tumbleweed. What the hell?
There was another sound, maybe a horse neighing or something. But I was like, holy cow! They're really just piling on with this. But so there was a few things that I thought, either this is done in ode to the Western, or it's just something that he wanted to,
Here, I'll read the
had
quote.
anything to do himself.
Let me give me a sec here, Jim. I'm gonna read the quote actually, because it's right on. And this is one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I kind of see where he's coming from. Probably why I might be a little more. I don't know. Impressed is not the right word, because I'm also like, there are problems with this film.
Oh yeah.
But okay, it's like filming took place, blah blah blah. Lee had watched the 2017 revisionist Western Hostiles and felt inspired, but also began reminiscing about films he watched with his grandparents and was inspired, quote, to write something as a throwback to those types of movies, but not make something corny in a way, something with heavy drama, but still maintaining those old traditions and tropes of the 60s and 70s. Those things are done on purpose. Those are shots where he's like, no, I want that. I want a shootout. Yeah. So he is like, it's almost like he's trying to redeem the Western, like to try and find a way. How can I make a Western like I saw the family, what were considered, this is family friendly Westerns, You've got a woman who's about to be alone. Her father's about to die, and she is going to be alone, but she wants to face this. She's got enough determination, grit. You know,
She makes a good stew.
yeah, she didn't feel so, and he kind of let that one go. It's like, well, I was really desperate for human companionship,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And fresh bread.
Oh,
But yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading Richard's comment
yeah.
there.
Oh, and yeah, Richard, you're absolutely right. Very, like, Buddy, I thought Buddy did a pretty good, without chewing up the scenery, he did a pretty good
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, except more burdened. Like Clint Eastwood until he got into Unforgiven.
Yeah.
Like the spaghetti Western Clint Eastwood, that was a guy who was completely comfortable with who he was.
Yeah.
The outlaw Josie Wales, completely comfortable with being an unrepentant, you know,
Yeah.
Civil War reb, you know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm just trying to think of all the westerns, sort of not all, but some of the more modern ones that I've seen.
Even on this
but
for Richard, the smoking, you know.
Yeah. the Kevin Makeley as the lead character, he had sort of a combination Andrew Lincoln from The Walking Dead and Brandon Routh thing going on. I thought he was sort of like a mashup of those two guys. He was also some sort of bodybuilding champion back in the 90s. So that's sort of some of his bona fides.
Oh,
I think
was he? Oh, okay. I didn't know. Oh,
and I think he's been in a.
Well, you saw the.
Yeah. And I think he was in a Woody Allen movie, and so he's got kind of an interesting, CV there. But
and another guy who's made some of these Christian films. Like this is, and again, like I say this is an atheist who looks at and analyze this, like my analysis is Marxist flavored, I thought it would give a Christian a lot to work with. Your kids are old enough and you're okay with letting them see the violence. You really could have some pretty good Bible conversations about this film. And for the good and the bad part of it, because it's like, well, like it was, I really felt it's like you're setting up a character that's supposed to forego violence, not kill the final boss. Then, well, he gave Harmon the money, the bounty.
Yeah.
That's not giving it up.
Yeah, it's funny. My kids,
especially, and even the money thing. Like he's forever trying to give away the money. Like, money was not.
My kids have sort of gotten into. I mean, they're not just, but they've always been big gamers, and they've been playing Red Dead Redemption a lot, and Red Dead Redemption 2, and these are big sprawling epics, and with a lot of side missions and that sort of thing. And this in a way, I was thinking the way it's pieced together, that it almost seemed like a and I know I sort of recognize now that there was a bit of a pattern to it, but it almost seems like it was sort of taken from, like, there was no sense of inevitability that he was going to run into Jeff Fahey's Huxley character. Well, I guess that unless they showed the warrant or something like that, which I didn't really recall. But
I think the only reason we were going to see Jeff Fahey is just the setup. It's the the Quaid guy, but he's almost like he's a side quest. He was just the local thug, I'm
going to turn my character this way.
That final preparation for, like, I could see this driven again, another character choice. So here he is, the old man's gonna die. She wants to help her have the farm, so he figures if I go and deal with this Quaid myself, man to man, I'll deal with it. And then because the old man is gonna die, and I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
Again, the penitent. He's dealt with the unrepentant man. Now he's dealt with the penitent man, the repentant man. Now he's got to go because there's other bastards on this list, and he's not sure he's ready that he's done enough to cleanse himself of his sins, even though very much what Mira Sorvino, the Sarah's character, is all about. No, just give it up.
Yeah.
Which again is going back to is thematically inconsistent. Even with the, like when I saw Knife's Edge, I'm looking it up and I'm like, that very much a metaphor for help me out here, Jim.
Choice, danger, fate.
No, yeah, or choice, I would say. You're on the knife's edge. You could fall either way.
Yeah.
And that's not up to random chance. That's all about his choice that he's making. Yeah. And they definitely lead to the right choice to make is this violent shootout. When it's like, was there another more interesting way he could have done it to sort of flip the trope, have his showdown, his dime store showdown, while at the same time kind of being more thematically consistent. And I think that would have made, and so going back to your original early point, yeah, maybe this script needed more work.
Yeah.
Fahey was slightly foreshadowed there because we get to see it. It doesn't super focus on it, but when he lays, at the very beginning with the general, chapter 1, the general,
the chapter
the drink, take a drink. Here's a drink.
Yeah.
They look at the desk, and under all the other stuff is a really well written letter. And I'm like, and now that I'm doing this stuff with you, Jim, I'm like a lot more observant to those details because I'm like, okay, is that something that's going to come up later? Of course, later on, where the Huxley Wainwright.
Yeah.
Some of you got Dudley Do-Right, and then some of the other villains where it's like
Matthias Breacher. He had a middle name
Breacher
too. Yeah.
Rhymes with preacher.
Yes.
And, and sometimes you almost hear that,
Well, and two, I'm thinking, well, is this like Katy Perry called her song "Firework"? It's Badland, not Badlands, and of course, Badlands is the classic Terrence Malick, Sissy Spacek, Martin Sheen movie from the 70s. So I don't think you'd want to step on their toes, but it was.
Well, but this is also, I think it's as he goes deeper, he has a way station at the Cook's.
Oh yeah.
Farm.
Cook's is.
Yeah, whatever. But then he proceeds to, and this is where, Knife's Edge, and that's what I was asking about other movies, because all I could think as he goes through the town gate, and there's Knife's Edge, skulls, and a sign, follow the rules. And this is what I thought about. I immediately thought of The Stand and the Walking Man's headquarters at Las Vegas, where there were rules and it was ruthless, like it really was. This is The Stand. And then right down to when he kills the sex trade worker for holding out on him, no forgiveness, no nothing, immediate, violent, and final punishment.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very much the Badland. Even though then they kind of throw in purgatory, where I'm like, I'm not sure that's really purgatory. And, you're usually not on a nice edge in purgatory. You're just taking you forever to, get somewhere. Exactly. But I mean, there's a lot going on there. And, I'm more and more now, I'm agreeing with you. Well, I think we should give Jamie, what he wants, sort of a. Here, we'll get Jamie. We're going to give you. First of all, let's give you Corporal Jimmy Burnside. And now.
I'm just trying to make it honest.
Me.
I'm just a simple farmer trying to make an honest go.
after my hard times in the war, my PTSD.
I just wanted to mention a kind of a neat thing about Bruce Dern. So a lot of this, and I'm actually kind of concerned for his health. He was bedridden in the last thing that I saw him in. He's 84. I looked it up.
Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, and that was
he
my
had,
immediate thought. It's like, wow, you're in bed again. This is the way you act now.
Here are the coincidences. So he's completely bedridden, I believe. I don't think he gets up even, although I have to see Hollywood again. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And he also lives on the George Spahn ranch, like his character.
Does he?
It might even be George Spahn himself, because he was a...
that's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's exactly who he was. He was George Spahn, and he was living there,
And he's the one that all the Mansonites sort of glom onto, because they realize that it's a sort of a hidey hole. They can do whatever they want. It's remote from the city. They can take it, it doesn't cost anything. And they can have their way, and they can manipulate them, right? So anyway, so Bruce Dern, bedridden, George Spahn ranch. In this movie, he's bedridden, and it's shot at the Veluzat Motion Picture Ranch.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, he goes from playing a guy in a movie who owns a cowboy movie ranch, to filming a bedridden shot, if this is making any sense. Anyway, so I thought those were a couple neat coincidences.
That is, it's all, what's also interesting about that, and maybe I doubt intended at all, but when you think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, its main characters are a star and a stuntman who are seeing the end, the big change, that sea change in Hollywood, which had already started. We're starting to see the end of a certain type of Western.
Televised Westerns.
Yeah, televised Westerns, especially Westerns with no moral ambiguity. And not that they didn't make those before. The incident Oxbow incident, whatever, that was made, back in the 50s. So it's not like it'd never been done, but really at this change where everything's about to change. And within 5 years, they just weren't making Westerns anymore.
Well, and that was... And then that was right around the time of the Wild Bunch, Sam Peckinpah's, where it's just aged cowboys that are sort of, I think there's even a shot of a car at the end of it, or something newish. And it's been a while since I've seen that one.
Kid, where they actually go to Bolivia because they just run out of the frontier is gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The technology has pushed them out. Another big theme and trope of the Western, that weird kind of tension. But that's and so of course they shoot it at a thing that's designed for this, with Bruce Dern in it, and what is more of an honest homage to this genre and that style of filmmaking that we haven't seen since the 60s. The style of filmmaking, style of Western, this kind of Western.
I should say, for those who don't know, just a real quick little story. I used to, in the 90s, I lived in Japan. We lived in Japan, and so when we got there initially, it was August when I arrived, and the only thing on television was this high school baseball tournament. And we were southern Japan. It was hot, and I just wanted to, in the mid, that sort of noon to 3 p.m. block, I just wanted to hang out inside with the one room that was air conditioned and watch television. So once the tournament ended sometime, mid-August or end of August, I started to watch a little bit of Japanese TV, and there was an endless procession, of Japanese period pieces. So their equivalent, just with samurais instead. So their equivalent of the Western, right? So I guess
another thing based on I'm not saying that there were never any samurai, but a lot of the 20th, the late 19th, you got the the Restoration period after.
I think it was.
You got the Shogunate falls in 1850, 1860. After Perry shows up and says, "Hey, you gonna trade or you gonna trade?"
Yeah,
I think you're gonna trade.
Yeah, And prior to that, though, they had, and Kurosawa does this a lot. They had like 250 years where, we're used to looking at these 4 major islands as one country, but in reality, there were multiple different kingdoms, and they were always at each other's throats. So, and it's known as I can't remember what the Japanese term is, but it's the country at war, basically, with itself. And I don't think they got along with the Korean side either. But anyway, so there's a lot of
restoration.
Yeah,
and then a reinvention of the idea of what a samurai is.
There's a lot of grist for the mill there, anyway, and you can see it in a lot of Kurosawa, for instance. So I was walking into this thinking that there'll be all kinds of things like Kurosawa, but there's a lot of sort of cheaply made 70s oversaturated TV samurai shows that were not pretty bad sound and bad lighting and not particularly interesting, not Kurosawa level anyway, but
no,
you can see a lot of his movies where there's just that constant wind and that sort of the poor villagers and literally scrabbling, to make and being afraid of the warriors coming at them.
Earlier American Westerns were part of his inspiration as well. Like, that cross-pollination of tropes. But I think also, like, it had a context, again, the Meiji Restoration, and then this reinvention of the idea of what the samurai was, almost very reminiscent of, not the same, but reminiscent of that, the idea of courtly love, and then later on chivalry about knights who are, thugs working for the uber thug, about helping the uber thug go beat up another uber thug and his thugs for their stuff. And I'm thinking about when the shogunate, I'm gonna say warring states, and that's a Chinese thing, but when the shogunate really came on and brought like a Tokugawa. I think Tokugawa, and when the samurai all of a sudden became almost, we don't need you anymore because now we're
one.
We've used, we no longer require your services, but they're kept around. But then they're put on the dole, and so by the time it comes to the Meiji Restoration, these are not who you think they are. But some folks write some dime store nonsense of their own.
Oh, yeah.
And this idea of this nobility of, so they're almost like primed to use another myth that has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
To kind of, they sold that BS to Americans. I'm not saying it was conscious on Kurosawa's fault. But it becomes really easy to use that trope and put it in their own kind of, apply it to their own BS.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and that's a little harsh. Like,
Seven Samurai.
I'm oversimplifying it. But.
Seven Samurai equals the Magnificent Seven, and
what's the 47 Ronin? But just some other the Alamo.
And it was funny too because I caught.
Okay, that's really an oversimplification.
Well,
it was work at all.
It was Thermopylae or whatever, the 300 or whatever. Yeah. Which I used to call
7,000 other allies.
what I used to call Thermopylae. But anyway,
I'm not going to say I never said hyperbole.
Yeah, who doesn't? But
who hasn't at least once?
Back, I think it was on TCM when Toshiro Mifune turned 100. I think it was his 100th birthday. And they were playing Yojimbo, and I managed to catch the last 40. It's one of those things where it's like, I'll just watch a few minutes of this.
Yeah.
Screw it, it's already 3 a.m. I'll just watch the end of it. It all built up to these sword fights, and the sword fights were like gunslinging contests, remarkably fast. So basically, it was all about the build-up. It's almost like sumo wrestling, where there's a lot of build-up, and these things literally don't last for more than 5 seconds. Like it's alarmingly fast. So Yojimbo, finally, Toshiro Mifune is is about to confront the baddest dude in town, and he gets the better of him, and it's over in 5 seconds, like less than 5 seconds. He just strides up to him. There's literally 2 or 3, what's the technical term? Swordy chops, and the guy goes down. And I don't know.
I'm laughing at you, but even as I'm thinking of swings,
yeah,
hacks,
yeah. So
stab,
like
thrust,
yeah.
parry. But thrust and parry,
yeah,
I think, you know what, maybe somebody in the comments, we still got it. Heck, you know what, we've had a consistent 4 or 5 folks watching throughout the whole time.
Say hi, folks.
That's awesome.
Like, subscribe, and comment.
Yes. Oh, good one, Jim. In the meantime, what I will ask is, can you help Jim and I with the while you're reaching over to hit that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell. If you can help us, if you can comment on, give us something other than swordy chop or stab, slash,
yeah,
slash hack.
Yeah,
hack's kind of used.
Yeah,
slash hack.
Slash.
Yep.
Richard chimes in.
I
think that's about right. Yeah.
So we got slash hack, parry, thrust, which sounds better than stab.
Yeah.
Stab.
So here's another question I have for you. So, a lot of the the Western scene, despite what the last 10 minutes what we were talking about Japan, it's largely seen about.
Jim, it's the nature of our show.
Thanks. That rabbit hole got
okay. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's part of the unpredictability, but so they're seen.
Part of our charm.
Westerns are seen as American, and I was wondering, are there any? And I don't mean shot in Canada, and I don't mean made by Canadians, but are there any Canadian Westerns, even in the Star Wars sense, where it's a movie that has the qualities of the Western, but it may not be a literal Western? Are there any Canadian movies that are Westerns?
You know what? I think there are. Okay, I don't know for a fact. Yes, are there films set in Western Canada, homestead in this period? Yes, but I do not think they can be called Westerns.
Okay.
You know what? Jim, I think part of what makes a Western is Manifest Destiny. It very much is that frontier to be tamed.
Mm-hmm. And
I think the nature of Canadian history and our own myths about our history, we're just not set up for that. A Western really is bound with that very American myth of its creation. Mm-hmm. And whereas Canada doesn't have that, that's not part of our creation story.
Yeah.
Other things would make it difficult. There was no Wild West.
Yeah.
Even one of the biggest ranches Canada ever saw in the 19th century was the Cochrane Ranch, which failed because they had to get the railroad out there. Otherwise, they were driving them down south to, I think, Montana, and they'd lose a big chunk of the herd, and the rest was starving to death. There was kind of a move in Alberta to kind of create a kind of United States, which was a lot of Americans kind of running out of space to, frontier.
Yeah.
So they do their thing. Be able to do their thing there. But no, I don't think there's. You can't. And to do it in Canada, to do a Canadian Western, I think it's almost an oxymoron.
Yeah.
It's so much bound in Manifest Destiny and in the frontier myth. It would just be. Oh, and Richard's making a great point here. If there's anything, and now it very much. Another cold shit. shitty winter in
Yeah.
wherever. Yeah, I think Richard's made a great point there as far as Canadian film. That said, I don't. You know what? It's open. I think it's worth researching, and maybe we can find something to contrast this with. But yeah, you know what? It's kind of like, and this is something, I don't know if you and I have talked about it, but Richard and I have talked about it, and some of his Brunch Bunch folks, is the idea. There's a reason we don't have superheroes. They're also an American thing. There's a reason Canadians don't have superheroes. It's just not our idea of the way we deal with stuff. You know, the Canadian superhero. I think it was Richard who put it, but somebody else could chime in on this. The Canadian superhero would be active in his community. You know, put a petition together. We're very much we're a country that said, remember CBC was doing that thing, The Greatest Canadian?
Oh, yeah.
Who won? A former United Church or I think Tommy Douglas was Methodist, right? But one of those United Church ministers who got together with other people, went to the meetings, created a political will to establish Medicare. There's a Canadian superhero for you. That does not make for a great superhero film. There's not a lot of action there. We're too focused on collective action. And going back to Richard's point here, I think we can tie these both together, or at least come up with kind of a potential theory, something worth exploring. But Richard's that idea of isolation, we never saw the West and being on your own as, wow, what a great way to live.
Yeah.
And that goes back to a more collective behavior. People out in the
really.
But this is and I'd even go further. I think Richard would agree with me. A studious committee member is one who shows up on time, is willing to do the hard, boring work, and only chimes in when they actually have something to contribute to the conversation. There's the Canadian superhero.
Yeah.
But the Canadian superhero wouldn't be some and so that
multiple
idea of
committee men
taming the land on their own, it's that's a horrible idea. And why would to be isolated? I think Richard is, that idea of isolation is very much more a Canadian thing, because we're not fans of, if we're going to be out there on our own, perhaps at the lake, for a few days, but you don't want to be the only person on the lake either. It's a little creepy and weird, frightening even, it's not, and that doesn't even go to our history, our understanding of our own history, there were already people there. There's Hudson. Ooh, what did you think of that? There were Hudson Bay blankets in that thing.
Was that the
Did you
curtain?
catch the play? It was both the curtains and then when he was, remember, so he leaves what did you call it? The Irish funeral?
The Irish goodbye.
The Irish goodbye.
We just leave without saying anything. Irish goodbye.
As he's looking for Huxley Wainwright.
Yeah. One final score.
Mustache twirler. There was a name for a mustache twirling villain.
Yes.
Why they should have come up with him as he was tying a damsel onto the tracks.
Yes.
As the train was coming. But he was even, you saw it even hanging somewhere in a town he was passing through as he was looking for Huxley. There's 2-3 moments where I'm like, that's a Hudson's Bay blanket. Pause. Yep. That's a Hudson's Bay blanket, which I thought was a really weird, a neat little touch. And I want to say anachronistic, but the trading networks, again, going back to that incorrect view of they certainly were ubiquitous, but I could see that in the American West as well, that they would go that far. It was a trade good. You know, I could see, and Hudson's Bay pushed out so many of them, you know, just so many. I could see them being that far south. No problem. I don't know, like, worthy of research, but.
Yeah, well, it's sort of, you know, you wonder if it was sort of accidental, or it's like, we need curtains here. Go out to Walmart and buy one of them. Or not Walmart, but, you know, see what you got at your grandma's house, you know, what have you. But it was one of those things. I was just thinking, there's a movie called The Claim by Michael Winterbottom that I think might have been. It's got Mila Jovovich and Kinski, Nastasha Kinski, and I'm wondering if that was set in Canada.
A mining town.
Yeah, I quite like that one.
I want to say it was set in Canada, but also like not
an
American Western.
No,
you know?
No.
Yeah, it's
more about
references
community
to mines and that.
Yeah.
But if there's a mine in an American Western, the mine owner is the devil.
Yeah.
You know, like there's or like it happened there where it's, the mine played out, but men still need booze and girls.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
yeah.
What did you think of, what did you think of it? Like, I was looking at it and there was a brief moment where I thought, it passed the Bechdel test. And then I'm like, oh, no. Okay, they're not talking about a guy necessarily.
Yeah.
Only one has a name, and they are talking about a guy and keeping money from the guy who, you know.
I sort of need to open my eyes up for that one. You mentioned that a couple times, and it's like you're on the lookout for him, and I haven't quite gotten there yet, but I should. That's a good question. One of my things that I was surprised by was the presence of waterboarding, which was kind of interesting. That was an unexpected delight. Really? Towel and water? I mean, maybe it's just a fancy way. Maybe they've just gussied it up in this century. But
I'm gonna give it. That would actually give me a few, because I kind of, you know me. I like to put these on a political spectrum.
Yeah.
And I do look at this as kind of supporting certain right-wing ideas. And I don't mean it like just as a knee-jerk, right-wing fascist. I mean, but you know what? Yeah, that would be, people on the right would be comfortable with some of these ideas. But I the one thing I was like, well, at least the guy who wrote this thought it's torture and evil people do it.
Yes,
There's a part of me that wants to almost look into it and go, are these people Mormons? You know, that kind of weird right-wing, but certainly way more in tune with like certain things that that Canadians, I would say you could say is a Canadian value.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just, and the fact that the waterboarding scene, when they sort of whip the towel off and he kind of goes, Pah! And he's got water, but it's also backlit. So you can tell that a little bit of the water is blood. And I can imagine like, cut, we need some more red in there. Like I just, was kind of an interesting.
But also, like near the end, all of a sudden he's in light, even when he's being tortured.
That's true.
He's more in light, and it's the really bad guy. Like he's moving out of darkness into light.
Yes,
which is great, but again, it's the knife's edge. Where's the one? Like at no time am I thinking. By the time he's there, no, he is a good guy who's gonna do good. Whereas there it's up to that point, it's like, is he gonna fall in? Like you don't find you I think you believe that he feels he's in peril, but I'm at no time going, and this is, I think, one of the weaknesses of the film. I'm in no time thinking he's in spiritual peril. Not at all. You know,
well, like I said, there was
suffering of PTSD, absolutely. As one would expect from what was to that point, like the first, or one of the first experiences of total war. And of a never-ending battlefield, and sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that there was a sort of a lack of that feeling of inevitability. Like this is it, this is the moment. It just sort of seemed like almost like in a video game where you have a quest, and then once you finish it, you go on to the next one. So that
the boss battle.
And like a boss battle. And I sort of think, and it's hard to qualify, hard to quantify, hard to say what change you would make to change that or improve that. But a lot of the best movies are those things that happen. And even something like, and I was going to mention this earlier with Richard's comment about metaphor or action flick trope is, John McClane in Die Hard bandaging up his own bloody feet. Which was sort of a new thing. If you remember watching it for the first time, it was like, oh, this guy is falling apart. He's good. Anyway, but
he was not an indestructible.
No, but at the same time, it had this feeling like it was contained. That it was based, that he had several decisions to make, that he had some challenges to overcome, and then it all took place in this, like there was a time. It was how am I trying to put this? There was this could be the last day of his life, like that kind of thing. There was a feeling of impending doom, I guess, that I didn't.
Which
quite
are you
get
talking of?
Like something like Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah.
Some of the best movies,
the stakes were missing.
You can feel the stakes. You can feel even watching something like The Sopranos. That was left as a puzzle. Like, is this the rise of a guy, or is this the fall of a guy? And is this the last year of his life, or is this the middle part of his life? And that kind of thing. And there was sort of it's hard for me to put a fine point on it, but there was something missing that I felt that was missing anyway.
I couldn't agree more, Jim, which is why one of the things I enjoy about us doing this is I'm now being a lot more analytical while still enjoying the movie. But I'm now starting to really get into theme, and it's like, if you have thematic consistency, and this is where it's like, they weren't willing to pick, okay, what's really at stake here? Is it his immortal soul? Is it him as a man, his humanity that's at stake? Like, hey, you know what? He's gonna live. He's a survivor. Or is it his? Oh, he could die. He's breaking down. You're right. Like, they kind of sabotage the spiritual stakes, because they were laying that groundwork.
Yeah.
But then they kind of, no, we're gonna go this way. So they kind of blew off that groundwork, or they just couldn't get into it or whatever. And then later it's like, yeah, but he's too good. He's not John McClane. He's a competent man. Oh,
there he is.
Look who's here. Ahmed. Ahmed, is it Maharuba or Mahuba? There's an Arabic word for hello, and I want to say Maruba, Mahuba, like a Kuwaiti Arabic word. I hope I said that correctly, or if I'm even close.
Shukran is that thank you? I used to know it. Anyway,
well,
I wish there was a box you could ask questions of.
Howdy.
Shukran, I was right. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, but that was like a thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to say hello. Look it up.
Oh, yes, okay. I wish there was a box that I could. I was going down my own.
Even as you're using it for your thing, thanks or not.
Hello in Arabic.
Marhaban.
Marhaban.
Marhaba.
Ban. B-A-A-N. Oh.
Marhaban. Oh, look at this. Shukran means thanks.
Again, we're bringing the continents together.
Yes, we are.
And maybe
Richard said hello.
Maybe 57 degrees Celsius in the Middle East, but
well, at least it's kind of warm here.
Hasn't killed the modem.
Like 30 in my home right now.
Yeah, I know I'm pretty warm.
Which is a Canadian. It's pretty. Merhaba.
Oh, okay.
Merhaba.
Merhaba.
Okay, no, okay, I'm gonna say it a couple of times, Jelly Duck. Merhaba. One of those is gonna be right. Or funny. Yeah, so you've going back to what the heck were we talking about? Oh yeah, the
Inevitably,
stakes. Yeah, I couldn't.
yeah.
And it's like he is, and this is the problem with him. Which is why I was kind of tilting towards spiritual stakes or his humanity. Was he's the competent man. Like you saw him at the very opening of the movie, and you're right, almost the prologue, but sort of that action scene that shows who he is now, his normal world, and he shoots 5 guys down before Buddy can even bring his gun up. Like he is the competent man. There is he is gonna win these draws. The only way they can get him is the cold cocking him, and even that, I was like, "You didn't see that coming, buddy."
There's a few parts where he's kind of naive, but it's
almost but for story reason, for a plot reason, not a story reason.
Yeah.
Like it's like okay. Oh, so the director needs you to be an idiot right now. Like you can almost see on set, Kevin going to Justin. It's like. I don't think my character would do that. It's like, listen, man, if you don't do that, they can't cold cock you. And I don't have time or money to figure out a decent way to get you
from here
to there. So
how many concussions does this character have? And like he shakes his head like he's gotten about a half dozen concussions in the course of the movie. But
now we're bringing in California.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, UP.
This is crazy, man. That's awesome. All right, here, I just got to fix my camera. Entertain everyone, Jim.
Okay. Oh my God. I need an energy drink, I think.
Now I should maybe get my focus on.
Ray Productions. That's what UP stands for. I see now.
Yes. This awesome individual I've met on Instagram. He's a filmmaker in California, actually.
Oh, nice.
And does some great, really, he could probably look at this film and go, there's prettier parts of California. We really could have made this work.
Well, one of them is this, he rides through a certain area that I swear I've seen on virtually every show, Criminal Minds, New Girl, and it's that same stretch of woodland that sort of with the low scrubby trees and the dirt, and I'm so sick of that forest.
I think it's within that 30 mile or 30 driving minute range, like that, to hire union people in from LA.
My wife watches a lot of the detective shows like Bones and things like that, and I might join her, but I swear to God I've seen that like a 1,000 times, and I just really, come on, find some other place.
Yes, really.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, in this one, the movie ranch that they shot it at, it's also part of Westworld was shot there, and it's interesting, the movie locations page on IMDb. So it's that, and I was thinking, and I don't know if do you remember there was a Community episode that's a clip show, but there were clips of episodes that never took place, like when they went whitewater rafting, and there's a western portion where they're facing
they
off
had some weird adventure in
drug
Old West.
Several.
Yeah.
There's
but
a
they were all,
racist
because
saloon.
They were all webisodes that they took, right?
Oh, really?
I think it was all clips from webisodes, because they did some webisodes, as they were trying to promote the show.
Yeah.
Like there's a show that I think so I saw the Zoom thing.
Yeah. Where they redid the episode.
Joshua, Ahmed, this is what we do on the show. We go down a rabbit hole that has nothing or only tangentially connected.
And
to
another
the
point
movie we were talking about.
Another point about the towering inferno.
Let me tell you, Nixon had everything to do with that. No, I watched that Zoom that Zoom table read that you raved about.
Yeah.
They're all reunited, and it's one of those things where it sounded that's a show that is now exceeding in status, like for creativity and that, like its peers of the time, Parks and Rec was a great show, but no one's talking about it like they talk about Community.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the people in Community, it's going to be the best thing that they were ever in.
It's certainly a defining thing that
yeah.
they're in, like how all these players except Chevy Chase, which makes it work, I think.
Yeah.
that Chevy Chase doesn't like it makes it even better for everybody, probably including Chevy Chase. Oh, that's the show everyone loves that I thought sucked.
It's sort of like Bruce the shark not working on Jaws, and so it's like, let's focus less on the shark. Oh, wait a minute, that works. You know
what? The shark's even more frightening and more omnipresent if we just use its music cue.
Exactly. You mean that paper mache thing wasn't doing it for you? But anyway.
Well, listen, we should probably kind of wrap up. It is because I was pissing around trying to get that that synopsis done properly. We did start a little late. That's what jammed us up.
That was great.
You know what? And I do like recording it ahead of time because I get my thoughts in order. And there's, instead of me going and I think and for 5, 6, 7 minutes, this is a solid 2.5 minutes of we're getting to the point and we're not giving a whole movie away.
Yes.
Before we get into, or actually, let's make a couple of announcements. What next week's show is going to be. We've also want to announce a new feature we're going to be bringing soon. But Jim, do you want to? Let me get the poster ready. But do you want to announce what the next next week movie is going to be?
I'm blanking. I don't know what. All
right. Well then, it'll be a reveal for you folks and Jim.
I'll know it.
Okay, so next week we're going to look at the new movie on Netflix, or soon to be new movie on Netflix. So next Monday, the 13th, if that makes sense, 6 and 7, 13th. On the 13th, we're going to be taking our usual over-analytical eye to The Old Guard. It comes out on Friday on Netflix, North America wide, and I also believe I'm not 100% sure, Jelly Duck, if that's coming out in
Middle East,
in Kuwait and those that region of that's still part of Africa, isn't it? Great.
Yes.
Or no, is
Asia?
It's part of Asia. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jim.
I think.
That's right, because it shares a border with Iraq, which is firmly in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Where the heck am I going with that? Old Guard, yes, the Old Guard.
Yeah, we don't know.
Charlize Theron and a bunch of other famous people. Another thing I want to talk about here, give everyone a heads up on, is as we're going to start doing sort of a short version reviews of the shows that we've taken a deep dive on. And yes, we're going to do it the reverse. We have the deep dive on the show, then we do a review of the thing that we just totally broke down, but more like a 5 to 10 minute kind of, hey, do we think it's worth your time? Kind of thing. And it'll probably start with me doing the first couple of episodes, but Jim and I'll probably alternate, the ones we want to talk about. And so that's going to start happening soon as well, just to kind of give you guys a little more, hey, do I even want to waste time before I go into the deep dive? I think that before we wrap up, I think one more chance to shamelessly beg for the like and the subscribe. And don't forget to smash that bell. Jim. Well, first of all, let's reach out to our folks in the stream and kind of go. Does anyone have any last comments, last thoughts, any questions, or any recommendations for future shows that you want to take a look at before we move on? Nothing.
Living in okay. Well, you get
Actually, there's like a 10-second delay, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Jim, give us your last take, your last thoughts on this movie, on Badland.
This made me want to watch a lot more other westerns. I know that's not grammatically correct, but maybe I was thinking, Wild Bunch and like we're talking about with our how does it hold up? Is that there's a bunch that I watched years ago that I haven't seen since, and Unforgiven, I'd like to take that for another ride around, and
I have never seen Dances with Wolves.
Oh, you don't? Yeah. It's interesting. There's a few things. Yeah. Anyway, we could. That's a whole other rabbit hole. But there's a couple interesting bits about it. But I don't know if it deserves the. Well, I know it doesn't deserve the Oscar.
This is a great moment, Ahmed. Great. Thanks for dropping in. Not that he needs it. He's got thousands more subscribers than Jim and I do, but he does. He vlogs daily, and Jelly Duck he creates his own music, sometimes right within a vlog. But he's got, and you know what? We'll have to figure out a way to get his link to his SoundCloud out there for those folks who are looking for, more that R&B kind of beat sort of thing, similar to the song that's playing right now. So anyway, au revoir, Monsieur Ahmed. Thanks for coming. Richard, thank you for making it. Sorry, Jim, I kind of cut you off there. Was there
no, I'm just saying it. Dances with Wolves. If you have 3 hours, it is what it is. There's some interesting bits about it, but I don't think.
I also want to see Hostiles.
It certainly didn't deserve
see that best scene you talk about.
Oh, it's such a good scene. I wish I could describe it, but anyway, I think Dances with Wolves famously won the Oscar over Goodfellas, unless I'm wrong, and that is one of those sort of cringy moments. But it's the philosophy here is that there's always something to enjoy, no matter what the movie is. So.
And I would say, and that's perfect. I'll take over now, Jim. I think, and again, I think there's a lot to honestly praise about this movie. Not my scene, not a Western guy. And the more I learn about Westerns, the more I'm like, this genre was worthy of death. Every now and then the odd revival, but you better be bringing something other than it's, really inaccurate and inaccurate and somewhat dangerous view of American history.
Mm-hmm.
That said, heck, I love superhero movies, and let's say as far as MCU stuff, I'm on Team Cap, but oh God, no, as a guy, it's like, no, that's a fascist dude, no, that's great leader. We all just have to follow that one guy, and it's no, not. So I can enjoy a superhero movie while at the same time going, the politics of superhero movies are terrible. Back to praising this movie. It really did. What's the word I'm looking for? It was pretty solid and actually seemed to really try hard to like a Christian movie that wasn't snake oily. It was. I can enjoy it, and I can see those, let's say, those gospel themes. And not be turned off, actually be provoked positively, and so there's a lot to praise it. I just think if you're gonna make a Western, you really have to come to terms with how do you incorporate the indigenous experience. How do you incorporate those roots of the Western tropes and their roots in that the Civil War and the Civil War lost cause narrative. I think you really got to kind of look at that when you're going to make one of these. And all I could say to Justin Lee is, oh, damn, man, you should have stuck with that spiritual great. You have a competent man who is not going to die, but die inside. If you'd stuck with that and kind of explored that further, I think we really could have been saying, wow, that was amazing. As opposed to, that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. Had some interesting ideas it didn't quite follow through on. Are you buying that, Jim? Or
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah, I guess what I would ask is how would you see that through? Like, if you wanted it to stick its landing, would that mean that he would have to die at the end, or?
I don't think he has to die. I think he has to choose a different way. I think if there's a thematic promise set up, and it's hammered effectively because it fits in the story. It's like, you have to leave. You just have to leave. Not go kill the final guy and leave, because I think you're having your cake and eating it too. It's, I'll leave. I just got to kill one more guy. It's like, no. Like, if you wanted it tragic, which would have been a solid choice as well, he dies in that last thing. And it's the what could have been, because bastards be bastards. Or he goes and he figures out another way, and that's a tough one.
Yes,
that really is a very difficult thing to do. I'm not saying I could have done it better. Partly, I just would not do a Western. That's not, it's not my jam. The single, the story idea I'm playing with, very, very Canadian in its, the community.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't see that.
Everyone gangs up on Huxley at the end and gives him a big hug, and they take him off to prison where he agrees to do his time.
They'd start a union. And the Canadian superhero would organize those sex trade
Let's
workers.
have a meeting. Committee meeting. A committee, nice edge improvement
sign them up
committee.
To union cards.
Yeah.
The Wobblies would get in there. It's like, here, we're going to strike this town and we're all going to stick together. But like you and I have talked about that, I think there's maybe one of the reasons we don't see the great man, that individual thing in Canadian film, is it's not a Canadian idea. And, when you talk about some of these heroes, and the United States is forever going through this hero thing, whereas there are some folks on let's say some Canadians who think, we can't, how dare we even think of it. He still was the first prime minister, talking about Sir John A. Macdonald, but we'll just quietly kind of, the statue may not get taken down, but it'll be shoved to the side. And then finally, we don't have room for him anymore.
Put some plants in front of it.
And a perfect example, and this happened years ago. I went to John Pritchard School, the corner of Henderson Highway and Wellham's Lane. But you look at the old school building, it still has Lord Kitchener on it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, eventually it was like, he invented, the first one who came up with concentration camps in the Boer War. Yeah. So,
hell of a guy.
All of a sudden, it's like, isn't there some local farmer who may not have such a problematic past?
Yeah.
We'll rename the school. No big deal. And I think, this is not to say that when Canadians don't have their own false narratives and false myths about themselves and how it hides our experience, like the Canadian, let's say the Indigenous experience within the geographic definition of Canada. And so this isn't a knock on American film or Americans and their culture as much, or in the Western. We got our own things. We just wouldn't do this because this isn't our thing. You know, we got other ways of being racist.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of these future movies, that's what we've got to look at. I think, let's dig for that Canadian pioneer or settler experience. And maybe that is something, to talk about that and talking about that isolation and that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, we quietly stopped talking about it. I think that's a Canadian way of dealing with problem parts of their history that they once praised. We'll just quietly stop talking about it.
It'll go away.
We don't want to take it down. That would cause confrontation, but we're certainly not going to brag about it anymore.
Yeah.
Look
over there.
Heck, there is a Imperial War memorial that's still up, not that far from when it was on in front of City Hall. What did they do? They moved it. It's that, and it's an imperial, like British, like Imperial War Memorial, has a, like a Sikh, like it really is. It's one of those, it's like, and they just moved it across the way onto the concert hall lands.
Yes.
And off to the side, and you can't even, you would not, you have to look
It's
for
in
it
that
to
little
notice
depression between the museum and the concert hall, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever,
It's like, is there a thing here? They kind of build around it. Eventually, we got to move it again. It's like, what, in the parking lot? Well, no, actually under the parkade. No, it's still part of our history.
What's this thing? Look at the planetarium.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you all so much, Jim. You'll stick around for a little postmortem.
I shall.
We'll figure out a way to charge you all to enjoy our boring BS. Again, Richard, Ahmed, Joseph, or Joshua. Who else do we got?
Jameson.
Jamie. Don't know if you're still
Matthew.
here, but Matt. Thank you all for showing up and for chiming in. And remember, next week it is The Old Guard on Netflix. Let's bring it up again. So we're looking at The Old Guard on Netflix. It plays on Friday. We'll be talking about it. 9:30. I swear to God, we'll start on time this time. Thank you all for your patience. And I don't even have a walking out. I don't even have my outro ready. I really am behind this time. Yeah, well, we'll somehow manage. Okay, let's both wave. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. And we're ending the broadcast. Bye-bye. Eventually, it'll go off.